Church, over the last several weeks, we have been studying out of 1 Corinthians 9. We start in verse 15, and today we will end in verse 27. We've been learning from Paul about really how he approached his life, what made him tick, what gave him the passion that he had to share the gospel, to plant churches, to see lives transformed. We know that his life was transformed on the road to Damascus, and he never got over that. He never forgot about it. He had this fresh passion about him all the way through his life. Didn't mean everything was easy. He faced tons of trials. He was in prison. The list of things that happened to him really, in some ways, are hard for us to comprehend. He had a burden for the church that outweighed them all. He suffered. He was shipwrecked. He was beaten with rods. The list is long. But he kept his joy and he kept his focus. How did he do that? And that's what we've been learning about, because he truly was a life that had an incredible impact, radical impact. His life had that. And we've been talking about it. You can, and I've been trying to tell you every week, and I tell myself this every day as well. God longs for my life and your life to make a difference for eternity, to be a person of influence for God's glory. I want you to know that God is waiting to work through your life, to love other people with your life, to meet needs, build relationship bridges, share the gospel, see their lives transformed. God is waiting to do that through your life, and that's what we've been talking about. One of the terms we've been using is soul sensitivity, that we are sensitive about the souls of other people that we see and engage in life, because that's what we're called to. That's what Paul had, was this soul sensitivity. And so just to review with you, and I'll do this very quickly, back in verse 15 through 19, the first of these three messages, we looked at the 5 foundations of Paul's ministry. You remember he talked about having a boast, to preach the gospel freely, and he didn't want that to be taken away. He had this compelling in his life, and he knew that there was an entrustment factor, that God had entrusted the gospel to him, and he would be rewarded one day of how he handled that entrustment. Those were foundational things. And then we saw out of that foundation, the second message, which was last week, that there was, in verses 19 through 23, there was the choosing. He chose to make his life available to connect with other people. And that was based on the calling in his life. And that's why he became all things to all men, so that he might win some, right? And we talked about what that really meant and why he did what he did. Now, there's the foundation. There's his action in connecting with people in order to see them transformed. But today, I believe we're going to see something that we all need to see, and that deals in the area of spiritual discipline. Paul had this. We need this. I think many people today in our culture struggle with this. This is not a works salvation, but this is an understanding of what true spiritual discipline is all about. And so Paul is writing to the church in Corinth. He's helping them understand that they need spiritual discipline, just the type and kind that he practiced himself. So Paul poses a question. He gives some encouragement. Then he shares a personal testimony to help the believers in Corinth develop, hold to spiritual discipline. And the same is true for us today. So out of that question, that encouragement, and that personal testimony, I want us to see 4 admonitions. You know what an admonition is? It's nothing more than an authoritative counsel. He's basically saying with authority, this is important. And so we need to take it to heart. And the 4 we're going to see today will simply be this: we should know, we should run, we should train, and we should focus. So I want us to grasp these today as we break this portion of the text down and see this all-important element that you and I need as Paul needed it, and those believers in Corinth needed it as well. So let's begin with the very first part, and that is the first admonition, which is we should know. Verse 24a says this, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize?" You see, there's the question that Paul raises, that he gives to those in Corinth. This is interesting, isn't it? Why would he ask this question? Don't they know the answer? Of course they know the answer. Yes, they knew that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize. This seems like a very elementary question. Of course they can answer it. Of course they know this. It would be like me saying to you, did you not know that you must drink water to live? If you get dehydrated, you'll die. I mean, that's simple, right? Drink water. We have to have water. We got to have, we got to take in air. We got to drink water, right? We got to eat. I mean, this is simple. It is a rhetorical question. Paul knows the answer, and his readers know the answer as well. But why is he asking such a simple question? It is a question to encourage them to focus on evaluating their lives. That's what this is all about. He's trying to get them to evaluate their life. It'd be like me asking, how many cups of water have you had today? None. That's probably not good. You're supposed to drink X amount in a day, right? 8 or something. I don't know what it is. I never drink that many. But you're supposed to drink that many, right? But if you don't drink any, you're evaluating. Well, maybe I need some water today. I don't feel good, right? He's trying to get them to evaluate their life. Spiritual evaluation oftentimes is ignored. Oftentimes, we don't want to hear about it. Oftentimes, we don't want to do this in our life. We don't want to evaluate. We want to assume everything's good. We want to assume we're great. But the truth of the matter is, you and I, we need spiritual evaluation. It's a good thing. You go and you have a physical exam, right? You say, well, I need to go to the doctor and have a physical exam. I haven't been feeling quite right. So they evaluate you physically, and you see value in that. Okay. How about you go and get an eye exam because you can't see quite the way you used to? You say, that's a value. I need to know what's going on with my eyes. Both of those are physical, but we see value in those. What about a spiritual evaluation, a spiritual exam to look at your life and determine if everything is as it should be? That's what he's getting them to look at. And this is important to do. When I go to the dentist, the hygienist always reminds me to brush and to floss, right? Because people tend to forget this discipline of flossing. I'm not going to ask you if you do it, but some of you are guilty of not doing it more than likely because I don't know why. Some of us just don't like to do that. It doesn't take very long, but the benefit is great. But we tend to say, oh, I'll be okay, and we don't do it, but we should. And so we should think about it and do it. Let me say this to you. An authentic Christian life will make it a priority to have self-examination. The psalmist said it this way in Psalm 139, 23 and 24. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me and lead me in the way of everlasting. Can you say that to God? Have you made your life available to Him to allow Him to search, to reveal to you where you are and what is going on? I'm going to tell you, by nature, we are more self-exalting and self-preserving than we are self-evaluating. And this is why we need a Spirit-guided, Holy Spirit-guided, Word-based approach to self-examination, spiritually speaking. You can't do it yourself. You need to depend on the Holy Spirit. You need the Word of God to be your base foundation, the revealer of your heart. If you're really going to do a self-evaluation, spiritually speaking. Doesn't it say in Jeremiah 17:9 that the heart is deceitful above all things, desperately wicked? Who can know it? That's why the Spirit-guided, Word-based approach is important. It says in 1 Corinthians 10 and 11, I'm just laying foundation here for us to embrace this whole understanding of spiritual evaluation. But he says this, but God has revealed it to us by his Spirit. The Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God. For who among men knows the thoughts of a man except a man's spirit within him? In the same way, no one knows the thoughts of God except the Spirit of God. When I do a self-evaluation, spiritually speaking, I ask for the Spirit of God to take full control, to reveal my heart, to give me God's heart on the matter, and to do it based on the Word. And this is important to do. There was a church over in Revelation, the church of Laodicea. Revelation 3:17, it said this about them. They spoke to themselves and they said, you say, I am rich. I have acquired wealth, and I do not need a thing. But you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. Really? Did you know that some spiritual evaluations, we look at ourselves and we go, look how great we are. Look at our church, how great we are. Look at how great I am and what I'm doing for God. When we come to the point that we don't need God, and for the church here in Laodicea, they gained a lot of wealth. They were comfortable. They were secure. They were not in a position where they were calling out to God, and it led them to the conclusion that they did not need a thing. If we get to the point that we don't need anything and we don't need God, I'll tell you how God sees us and the way we ought to see ourselves. When we're in that position, we are pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. There's not a day that goes by that we don't need God. And anything that allows us to get to a point and graduate in our hearts and minds that we are not in need of God, we are in trouble spiritually speaking. The church at Laodicea needed self-evaluation. And I want to call you to self-evaluation today, spiritually speaking, just as Paul did here with this very simple question when he said, do you not know in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? The answer is very simple. Yes, they knew that. Everybody knows that. It's easy to understand that question and to answer it. So what's your point, Paul? He's leading them to this, the second thing. We should run. Yes, we should know this, and they did, but we should run. Look at what he says in the second part. He says, run in such a way as to get the prize. Now, this isn't very deep either, but it's very straightforward. It's very to the point. Yes, so many believers are running the race. They claim Christ. They say they're saved. They've been in the church. They're running and they claim and they know, and there's a general understanding of their connection to God. But the real question that we've been looking at for all these weeks is simply this: are we running in such a way to win? And that means this: are we doing everything that we're doing so that we can share the gospel of Jesus Christ? So we connect with people who need Christ. So we can share with them the life-transforming message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Is that the focus? Are we running in that way? Or are we just connected to God, generally speaking? We do good things. We are connected to the church. We even do Bible study. We even pray. But never to the point that we feel responsible to the gospel of Jesus Christ and the making of disciples. I am here to tell you, I've told you week after week, and I'm telling you again today, when we stand before God, what He's going to be interested in is the gospel, because that's His love He sent to us in Jesus to die on the cross. For God so loved that He gave what? His only Son. And if we ignore that, and yes, Jesus left us with that message. Go and proclaim this truth. And the church has been lulled into doing everything but. Everything but. And we think we're okay. We evaluate, say, look what we're doing for God. We're doing this and we're doing that. And we have no needs. But the truth of the matter is we can't proclaim the gospel if we're not in need of God to equip us, sustain us, compel us, so that we can do this by His strength and His power for His glory. And so you got to run. Listen, these little words, in such a way. In such a way. This is very important to grasp, because this helps us evaluate how we are running. This is important. One of the things I've heard so many people say recently is, basically, if you want to put a title on it, they would tell you, many people have told me this. Somebody told me this week. I was in a pandemic slump spiritually. Said it became so easy for me. Once I got out of church and I got away from God's people and I didn't have accountability in my life, as I just kind of kept slipping away, from my relationship with the Lord and my connection to the body of Christ. And I've heard this over and over and over, and I think it's one of our, I'm not judging, but I'm telling you, I think it's one of our great challenges in the church today, is that we're running, but we've stopped running in such a way to win. We're here, we're existing, but we're not going forward with the purpose in which God's called us. We need to evaluate how we are running the spiritual race. Self-spiritual evaluation is a good thing. It's a needed thing. Now, coming up on May 1st, Saturday, we're going to have a day in the park. And we're inviting people. A lot of people have signed up. A lot of people are coming. And it's going to be a great time of fellowship and different activities going on. And one of the activities is there's going to be a disc golf tournament right after lunch. How many of y'all are going to play in that tournament? A number of y'all? Some of y'all come in? All right. A number of you. So it's going to be a lot of fun, right? And so I've been recently trying to learn how to play. It's very different. In fact, it's a very difficult sport. It's very technical. There's a lot to it that you have to learn. And so one of the things I've been trying to learn is exactly just how to throw the disc, right? It's not like throwing a Frisbee out on the beach. I mean, it's very different. There are certain steps you got to take, certain form you have to have. I mean, it's very technical. I didn't know any of that. So finally, Josh told me one day, he said, Dad, he said, I need to teach you how to throw, because he'd been watching me throw. And I'm sure he's back there going like this. Dad, man, what are you doing? Things going over here and over here, and I was going all over the place. So he said, you need to work on some things. I said, I do? He said, yeah. I said, okay, I'm going to have a teachable spirit. I'm going to work on it. So he began to tell me. We'd watch some videos. He said, now watch this video of this guy's a professional. Here's what he does with his feet. Here's how you throw it. Here's all this stuff, right? So, okay, I'm going to watch it. And so I started watching it. He said, now, Dad, what we need to do is we got to get you outside and we need to evaluate how you're throwing. I said, okay, how are we going to do that? He said, we're going to film you. I said, we are? Yeah, we're going to film you. So last week we went out to a field, and he brought the tripod, this big old tripod, and put the phone on it. He said, okay, Dad, you throw. He's filming. I'm getting ready to throw, and I go through all the motions, and I throw the disc. And I said, how did that look? He said, I don't know. Come over here and look for yourself. And so I did. I walked over. He backed it up. He did it in slow motion. So it was filmed in slow motion. In slow motion, I got to watch exactly what I was doing. And not to go into great detail, but I was pointing my feet the wrong way, and so I had to change how I was doing my feet, which changed how I did my throw, the whole deal. But here's what I want you to know, and it was helpful. But to have somebody say, your throw is messed up, you need to work on it, study it, do something about it, you need to evaluate it. It took a teachable spirit. I had to say, I'm not doing so good, am I? When my son's telling me, you're doing that wrong, Dad. And so I had to go out in the field, be willing to be filmed, but here's the main thing. I had to walk after I threw the disc. This is very simple. I know this is very practical. But I had to choose. When he said, you come over and look for yourself, I had to go over myself and I had to self-evaluate what I did. Here's the deal about that, and I'm just talking human nature. Most of us don't want to look that close at our life, spiritually speaking. We don't want to do it. I don't know if we're scared of what we're going to find. I don't know if we like the way we're living and we don't want to change. We don't want to be failures. We want to think we're doing such a great job. But I'm telling you, if you will humble yourself, walk over into the presence of God and let Him show you whatever it is He needs to show you. Just think, if He changes just 2 things in your life that allows you to connect with Him, to come up with this passion, to stay focused on the race, and to run in such a way to win the race. Wouldn't it be worth it? That's what he's trying to get the church in Corinth to do. Do this self-evaluation. It's worth it. See, we will evaluate when we care enough to take an honest look at ourselves. That's when you really make a change. And a runner who is running to win the spiritual race should ask themselves some questions like this. How is my relationship with God? You ask God and just be honest with Him. Let Him reveal to you how it really is. How is my sensitivity to the Spirit? Do I just kind of plow through my day, or do I live with this sensitivity to the Holy Spirit that is to lead me, guide me, reveal truth to me, empower me? How is my willingness to tell others about Christ? Just that one thing may get you pointed in the right direction to run to win. Because if there's no desire, there's no prayer about it, there's no connecting with someone, praying to connect with someone, then all this stuff we've been studying doesn't even relate, because you can't even understand why Paul is, I've made myself available to people. I've become all things to all men that I might win some. That's a foreign language, because you're not even trying to connect with people, because you're not running in such a way to win. And that winning is the preaching of the gospel to people and seeing their lives transformed. The running is the preaching, the connecting. Here's what I'm trying to get across to you. Don't be afraid of spiritual evaluation in your life. Let God do it. We should know, we should run, that is, in such a way. Then number 3, look at verse 25. We should train. Here's what he says. Everyone who competes in the games, now they understand this, they get this, goes into strict training, like the Olympics. You go into strict training if you're going to do that. They do it to get a crown that will not last, okay? That stuff didn't last. But we do it, meaning we do strict training, don't miss that. We do strict training as well, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Some people are running for fun, not competition, the Christian life. They just kind of haphazardly go through year after year. But if you're running, say you're running to train for a marathon, it takes discipline, daily discipline. There's something you have to do to prepare your body to get out there to run that race. And I promise you want to run in such a way to win, whatever win means for you. If it's a personal best time, if it's to win in your age category, whatever it may be. If you're a serious athlete, you go into strict training to do that. So he's using this practical understanding to move it to a spiritual understanding. And we shouldn't be running this spiritual race for fun. God forgive us that we've allowed the people of God to appease their hearts enough to feel like they've done something for God when they've missed it altogether. When the real goal is to run in such a way to win. We've done people a disservice to lead them to believe they're okay just to run to have fun, if that makes any sense. We're so glad you're just here. Just be here for the rest of your life. Don't do anything, just show up. What? No, make a difference. Tell your family members about Christ. Can you imagine Paul's transformation on the Damascus Road, and he's done with that, and then he just never speaks of it again? He just secures himself for heaven, and he doesn't care about anybody else? No. He gave the rest of his life, every bit of it, every hardship, every joy, everywhere he went, everything he did for the proclaiming of his Savior that he met on the Damascus Road. And we should live the same. But we've kind of said, it's okay if you don't. Not really. No, it's not. But there's a training involved in this, a spiritual training. It's critical to living this life. And if you're struggling to train, I encourage you to find an accountability partner that'll help you train. Somebody that will call you, somebody that will meet you, somebody that will study with you. Go for a walk with someone. My wife, Michelle, is very faithful to walk and pray with people or to meet and talk with them about the Lord. And that is just simply, it doesn't have to be this detailed thing that you just show up, seek God, love one another, encourage each other in the Word. We need it. That's what Paul's doing for the church at Corinth. He's meeting with them and saying, hey guys, come on. You can do this. I've been doing this. It's what works. But the enemy's faithful to give us excuses about our strict training and our relationship with God. He comes alongside and he says things like this: wait till tomorrow to read God's Word. You don't need to read God's Word. You already know enough. There's an easier way. You know, I'm telling you these because this is the kind of thoughts that come to me. If God really loves you, He'd not put you in this situation. Go have some fun. God will forgive you. That's the one the world always preaches. It's okay. Everybody's doing it. That's one that's been around a long time. That's not from the Lord. That is not from Him. He always wants to draw us into relationship with Him and reveal Himself to us by His Word and by the Spirit. All growing up, I was taught that there is freedom in discipline. What does that mean? It means that once you have a spiritual discipline, a daily practice of something, you do it long enough that it brings a freedom to your life. We understand this. If I was to take musical lessons, I maybe could go over and play the piano the way Johnny does if I'd been doing it for all those years. You do something long enough, there's a freedom that comes. Some of us have been in and out of the Word so inconsistently, we don't even get God anymore. We can't even fully understand it because we're not giving God a chance to reveal Himself, to have the discipline that will lead to the freedom to live for Him to make a difference. We've been in and we've been out. We've been in, we've been out. We've been in, we've been out. We need to stay in, stay in, stay in. That's a spiritual discipline. Stay connected. Why would you do it? You do it to get a crown that'll last forever. You know, Thomas Edison said, genius is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. It's finding out the right thing to do and keep doing it. God's Word is the right thing to do, and we should keep doing it, connecting to Him relationally. We need to sweat spiritually. It's a discipline. What is a discipline? It's a commitment to a task, a focus, a sport, a career. We understand discipline in every other arena of life, but we tend to think, nah, not in the church. You get saved, you have grace, forgiveness, mercy, and everything's good and go on. No. Paul said, look, you've got to stay focused. You've got to be disciplined in your personal relationship with Christ, because out of that comes His heart, His passion. Your willingness is His willingness through you to make disciples. You know, discipline has been defined this way as well. It is giving up that which is good for that which is great. Good can always be the enemy of great. And I want you to know that connecting to God and living for Him is great, period. There's nothing greater. Salvation, knowing Him, living for Him, going home to be with Him, you can't put anything to me that's greater than that. So if that's great, and I have something that's good in my life, it doesn't even have to be evil, but if it takes that away and sets that to the side or in the background, what I'm trying to say to you is that it is interfering with my discipline, with my spiritual discipline to do what matters most. That's why in churches, oftentimes Satan, I've heard people talk about this all my life. Satan has no problem with us meeting together, talking about God, long as we are not connecting with God in prayer and sharing Him. You can talk about witnessing long as you're not witnessing. You can talk about prayer long as you're not praying. The discussion of theology has never been a threat to the enemy. It is the application of that, the living of it, that will get him all riled up, and he will come against you. And that's when we put on the armor of God. That's when we are in the battle. That's when we're making a difference. We know we're on the right track. But the church that knows the truth and does not live the truth is not a threat to the enemy at all. That's why James talks about it. Don't merely know the truth and don't know. It's like looking in a mirror and forgetting. Don't merely listen to the word and deceive yourselves. Do what it says. That comes out of discipline. Paul practiced this. Over in 1 Timothy 4, 7 and 8, it says, have nothing to do with godless myth, old wise tales. Rather, train yourself to be godly. Train yourself to be godly, Mark. Train yourself. And I have things I do to train to be godly. Now, that's not legalism. This is not performance-based. This is about me knowing that I do this so I stay connected, abiding in the vine. He says, for physical training is some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise both for the present life and the life to come. That's why I train for godliness. I ask myself these types of questions when I'm training for godliness so I can run. Where am I spending my time? Am I growing in godliness? Am I applying what I know? Am I willing to make the adjustments to truly train in order to proclaim? I ask myself those hard questions. I think one of the things that really gets us is busyness in life. And we know the right thing to do, but we can't find the time to do it. Everything gets in the way. And we think, oh, that's going to take so much time, and we go to do it, and then we get distracted and we don't do it. I don't think it takes that much time. I want to tell you this little trick that I've learned personally, and I'm going to apply it as a practical thing, and then I'm going to apply it spiritually for you. How many of you really struggle to unload the dishwasher? It's just like a thing. You know it's there, but you struggle to do it. I got one person. I don't like to do it per se. A few others, like, oh yeah, okay, there's more honest people coming out, more and more, all right. You say, man, it's there, I'm not going to do it. Oh, I don't want to do it. I'll get it later, and you walk away. Here's one of the tips I've taught myself. It's a mental thing. It really doesn't take that long to unload it. And so I've trained myself to grasp that. So here's what I do from time to time when I'm struggling. I'll get my phone out or my watch, and I'll set the timer, and I'll say, go. Now, I don't rush doing it. I take my time. I get the coffee cups out, and I take them over, and I put them where they go. I get the bowls out. I put them where they go. I get the silverware out, and I put it where it goes. And I just kind of go through what I'm supposed to do, and I do it very methodically, and then I stop. And you know what it is? It's about 3 minutes and 48 seconds to 4 minutes. That's it. That's it. I fretted way longer than that about doing it when all I had to do was go do it. And what I'm trying to, in saying that, I'm trying to get you to grasp. Oftentimes we go, I just can't get in the Word. I know I need to get in the Word. And we go through this process. Just get in the Word. Give it 3 minutes and 48 seconds to 4 minutes and just let God speak. He'll take care of the time. See, I think the enemy just convinces us we don't have time or we can't. Here's the deal. We must. And we got to do it daily. We got to do it consistently so that then there comes a freedom out of the discipline. It's important. This is all part of the preparation, so don't disregard the process of preparation. It may be the very thing that's keeping you from running in such a way as to win. So we've seen we should know. We've seen we should run. We've seen we should train. But now I want you to see that we should focus. Verse 26 and 27. Here's what he says. Therefore, I do not run like a man running aimlessly. I do not fight like a man beating the air. No, I beat my body and make it my slave so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. 3 things here. First is this, live with focus. He says, therefore, I do not run like a man running aimlessly. Remember, the running is the preaching, and the preaching brings the winning of the souls. This was his life focus. He's not saying, I just want to be a Christian and run around. He's saying, as a believer whose life's been changed, I want other people's lives to be changed. I've been in the entrustment of the gospel that he'll give an account for. Remember we studied that? He said, okay, I know that's true, so I'm going to run in such a way, and I'm going to run with focus. I don't do it aimlessly, running around in circles, running over here, running over there, doing this, doing that. No, he said, I have focus. And when an individual gets focused on soul sensitivity and lives for the glory of God, for the entrustment that's been given to us, it changes how you live. So he's got this focus. He's not running all over the place. Secondly, he says this, he lives with purpose. I do not fight like a man beating the air. No, he knows his target. He knows what he's going after. He's not shadow boxing. He's trying to get them to understand. When Paul preached, he was fulfilling God's purpose for his life, and he knew it was right. He stayed focused in the purpose for his life. Now, if I don't believe it's God's purpose for my life, why do it? But I know it's God's purpose for my life and for yours, and so we must do it. I don't want to be a half-hearted participant in the work of the Lord. I don't want to run aimlessly. I don't want to beat the air. I want to see people's lives changed by the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, this is one of the keys of how Paul did all this. Right here at the end, verse 27, he lived with discipline toward himself spiritually. Verse 27 says this, no, I beat my body. This is not self-mutilation. No, I beat my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. This beating my body is, he was socking temptation with a black eye, is how you understand this language. But too often and I'm telling you, temptation comes to those who are serious about preaching the gospel. That's when you become a threat oftentimes, right? But too often today, we begin to toy with temptation instead of just dealing with it. The Bible says to flee evil desires, the appearance of evil, the temptation of evil in all its forms is dangerous. It will take us literally out of the race that we're trying to run in such a way to win. In fact, he said, I don't want to be disqualified for the prize. I don't want to be a castaway. The Greek games, it's called a castaway. That means disapproved, disqualified, losing position in service. Satan will come after you, and he'll do that. I'm sorry if that sounds too serious for you, but it's real. It's a spiritual war. Jesus faced temptation. He faced every temptation without sin. He knows what we're going through. He's there for us. He's provided us what we need. That's why it says in 1 Corinthians 10, 12, and 13, so if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. No temptation has seized you except what is common to man, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, here's your responsibility. He will also provide a way out so that you can stand up under it. Take it. Take it. Yes, it's going to come. Yes, the battle is real. It's all part of it. I don't fully understand it, but it is all part of it. And my part and your part is to keep your body under control. Keep your eye on the eternal goal. It's very interesting to me and somewhat refreshing to me to see Paul, one of the great servants of God, realize that he had not arrived. He was still in the battle. He was still in the war. He was still having to deal with his flesh. And he was doing it so he could stay in the race, run in such a way to win and not be disqualified. Dr. Roy Fish, one of my evangelism professors from seminary, in his latter years, we were at a conference, and walking along, he just made a comment that stuck with me. He would pass away a couple years later, but he simply said these words. He said, the longer I live, the more intense the spiritual battle becomes. I thought, oh, that is an exhausting thing to realize. Right? But you know what he's really saying? I think I've stayed in the race, and the more I stay in the race, the more the enemy wants to take me out of the race. I'm still relevant. God's still working through my life, and so the enemy's going to keep fighting me. That's really what he was saying. and God's sufficient, I don't have to despair that temptation is still going to come. Yes, it's going to come. God's sufficient. That's what Paul's saying here. How do you stay in the race? I think you have to recognize that God's work is a spiritual work. Expect temptation to come. Live by truth. Don't yield to the temptation. There it is. And why would we do that? So that we will not be disqualified for the prize. I think it's all worth it. In fact, I know it is. Because we are dealing with eternal matters. Let me tell you somebody that's not dealing with eternal matters, but just physical things, that learned a secret about discipline. I came across this story and started following this active story of this young man. His name is Hella Setabi. He is currently, as we are speaking right now, he's somewhere out here in America running. He's running across the country. It's a 3,200-mile journey from Los Angeles to New York City. His hope is to be able to do it in 100 days or less. He runs a distance every day to accomplish this. And he's running all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast. And he wants to do it in less than 100 days. 3,200 miles. Every day he's running. He's out there today running somewhere. You say, man, that's crazy. It is crazy. I don't think I'd do that. But what's interesting about his story is that he started a run streak back in May of 2017, and he's been running every day, and somewhere in this 100 days, he will complete his 4-year mark of having run every day of all 4 years. Every day. I mean, you see some of the pictures? He lives up in New Jersey. He'll be out running. His whole beard, face, head covered in snow and ice, and he's out there running. I'm like, what is this dude doing, man? He's just holding to his commitment. He's going to run every day no matter what. And so more than likely, he's going to meet that goal, the 4-year mark, that he runs every day. When he was interviewed, he said he didn't originally plan on running every day for years. Instead, he simply told himself, this is how it all started, that he wanted to run for 10 minutes every day for 2 weeks. 10 minutes every day, 2 weeks. That's just how he started. 10 minutes every day, 2 weeks. And that's what he did. He went out and ran 10 minutes. And then it increased and increased. And he said soon enough, he could run up to 6 miles. He forced himself to get out every day, no matter how much he didn't want to. His mentality was just to get out there for 10 minutes, he said. The distance didn't matter for me, and the pace didn't matter. He said, I just wanted to get out there. And he did. And now look where he is. And look what he's doing. Now, this is something physical. This is not spiritual. But he learned the importance of daily discipline. But here's the part I want you to grasp. I was watching an interview that he was giving. And what he is currently using, one of the techniques he's using to complete the 3,200 miles from coast to coast run is this. Listen to this. He said, your reasons to continue must be bigger than your reasons to stop. I want to read it one more time. Your reasons to continue must be bigger than your reasons to stop. Spiritually speaking, I want to ask you a question. Is your reason to stop running the race in such a way to win, is it greater than the reason to continue? If my reason to continue in my relationship with God is greater than my reason to stop, I will continue. And see, this is really what allowed Paul to do what he did. He was able to understand eternal truth in the presence of God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit to the point that it impacted his daily decisions to continue. He saw what mattered. Some of us are not living the truth we know because we're not really sure it matters for eternity. It does. And it comes back to this daily discipline. It's what I've always said is, when I share the gospel, I want to do it under the leadership of the Holy Spirit for God's glory and because Jesus has called me to it. Not because my professors asked me to, not because my parents told me I needed to, not because my preacher said I must, but because my Savior has entrusted that message to me. And it's very different. It's very different. But that comes out of daily discipline and conviction. I'm just convinced the church will be revived when the church returns to its first love, and our first love so fills us that it changes how we live. And I believe all of that is connected to daily abiding and grappling with the call on our life, the purpose of our life, the entrustment, our willingness to be soul sensitive, our willingness to connect with other people, our willingness to deal with temptation, our willingness to beat our bodies. And that's not physical abuse to us, but it's a term that says, I will deal with temptation, I'll give it a black eye to the point that I will not be disqualified so I can continue to run with purpose, not aimlessly. I want to do this because I know it's what matters for all eternity. That's it. And when we embrace that, it changes everything. Everything.